everyone. It has been a couple of days since Joe and I videoed last, so I just wanted to try and get back with you. One, I had a couple of people who had messaged and asked a couple of questions, and so I wanted to maybe kind of get back and address those. First, let me say that my sidekick is obviously not with me tonight. He is actually spending the night with his daddy. So I'm going to miss his sarcastic little wit and our bantering back and forth. It kind of helps center and calm me, and I just feel much more courageous with him around, but he isn't, so be patient with me, please. And so I just wanted to come back to a couple of questions. Someone had asked, a couple people have asked, how is it that I manage to keep my focus on God daily, so much, especially during this period in time. And so I want to address that first, and I just want to say thank you for that sentiment. But if I'm honest, I struggle to do that all the time. I have periods of time, moments, days, maybe even a week or two here and there, that I do pretty good with it. I get into that routine and I'm up and I'm in the Word, or I'm prayerful throughout my day, or I just feel connected because I need that, or I'm mindful, and I get there. And I'm very grateful because I know the difference. I can tell the difference when I'm connected and in that place with God. Well, I'm more confident and at peace in the world, and much more patient and calm in my relationships. And so, sometimes I'm pretty good at that. Other times, and if I'm honest, probably more often than not so good at that, and that there are actually those moments and times and weeks and maybe even months that I just don't get there. I don't manage it. I want to manage it. It's a desire of my heart. I want to be in His Word and in prayer and that connected every day, but I allow things to get in the way, and just probably maybe like everyone does. I don't know. I'll just own it and say I do that. I let things get in the way, be that my responsibilities as a mother, as a single parent, and it doesn't matter if you're a single parent or not. I let things get in the way from completing things for work or homework for my son, or dinners or dishes or laundry, or I want the house to be perfect and I need to vacuum, and oh my gosh, spring's coming and I need to burn leaves and do all the things I've been spending a lot of time doing lately. So I let things get in the way, and then sometimes I just get in that place, where I'm tired, I don't get up. The idea of getting up even 1 minute earlier is just exhausting to me, and so I don't. I let it ride, and I make the excuse that, I'm just got so much going on, I'm overwhelmed, and I'll get to it tonight, and, that night comes, and I don't get to it. I, maybe even had a good start, sat in the recliner, got the Bible out, next thing you know, I'm sneezing and sleeping in that recliner, and those who know me are laughing because they know I do that. So I let things get in the way of that. I try, but it's not something I do perfectly. I've been through enough in my life, I think, that I've recognized how important it is and how vital it is for me to stay connected with God, and I know I do better with that, and I know now the signs in myself when I'm not doing that. I find myself exhausted, tired, feeling like the way the world is on me. I start feeling anxious or fearful, and I jump ahead into tomorrow, next week, or swim around in the what ifs, and somewhere in there I suddenly go, yeah, right, I didn't make that time. I'm not connected. I need to get back. I need to be still and know that He is God, and that's what I do. So, but it's an ongoing thing. It's not anything I've accomplished as of yet. I hope to always get better and to grow in that discipline and in that privilege, but it's not something I've accomplished. So I hope that answered your question, and if it didn't, feel free to ask whatever else you need to know. And then the other thing is a couple of people had asked me about whether or not I talked a lot in other videos, I guess, about still seeing the blessings in all of this and looking for the opportunities in all of this. And so a couple people had asked me, what struggles do you have? Are there things that you struggle or that you find yourself battling in the middle of all of this? And I guess my answer would be, yeah, absolutely, yeah. I had things that I struggle and get bogged down in before this, but definitely, yes, I struggle too. And in fact, I just came through a couple of days that have just been tough. Probably some of that is on me. Again, running ahead and thinking, okay, so we got through this school year, but what about next? And, I don't know. I just get ahead of things. And sometimes I'm a person, I like to help people. If I can do something or make a difference, I want to do that. And sometimes I can get bogged down by that because, one, I become very aware of how limited my resources are to do everything I would want to do. And then I get depressed or panicked or concerned, well, if I don't do this or I don't take care of that, and I forget who's actually taking care of everything. So, yeah, I have things that I struggle with, and so these last couple of days have been hard for me, and I can be hard on myself. I'm one of those people that usually sees the glass half full, so, I'm thinking, oh, pandemic, and that's terrible, and we're all closed in, but hey, let's look at the blessings and the time we have at home, and, and I want to go through that list, and then I say, oh, and look at all the opportunities, and maybe I'll take a class, or maybe I'll, learn to crochet with Joe, or we'll paint pictures, or we'll, and I come up with all of these things. My house will be perfect, and the yard will be perfect, and then it's not, right? And it's not, because as great as that all sounds, I don't get all that done, and I do find myself on the sofa or in front of the TV or just tired and wanting to sleep in the morning. So, yeah, there are things that I struggle with too. As for lessons that I've learned, there are many, and they are huge, humongous things to really teeny tiny things. I've learned I take a lot for granted. And I don't want to do that. Shame on me for ever failing to notice that getting up in the morning and just having good health and a job and being able to pay my bills and know that my children are healthy and safe and that, life is normal every day is a privilege. Shame on me for not recognizing what a blessing that was and taking that for granted. And, I hope that going forward I'll be more mindful of the things that I should be grateful for and give thanks. But I think the biggest thing lately for me that continues to come back up is, just humility, needing to remain humble and being willing to receive, yes, anything that, the Lord is working out in me through this experience. And I think that's different for everyone. So being humble and receiving that and being willing to look at myself and consider and see myself through God's eyes and be able to move and work on areas of me that He's exposing in this. So humility and, I guess humility, because I guess the bigger picture that I get in that is, just remaining humble and being careful not to judge one another or blame one another or discard, people through this experience or think that we're more worthy or capable than someone or anyone else when we're really not. So I think those are all big lessons that I'm learning. And I think about when the pandemic first started and, getting that call that said, hey, we'll not be returning to school tomorrow and you're going to be out next week and then we'll have the 2 weeks of break and we're going to try to come back after that. And I remember kind of being surprised, that happened and that's the direction that it was going. But okay, so we're looking at an extra week off work and, maybe a little crunch in my budget, but, nothing that can't overcome or can't work through. And okay, and I think, we talk about those stages of grief, and in the beginning, and I'll own this, I'll take that on myself. I guess I I think maybe I was in a little bit of denial or disbelief or whatever, in that, I don't think I really grasped the scope of everything and thought, maybe I trivialized it and thought it wasn't going to be that big a deal. We're looking at 2-3 weeks max, and then we'll all be back to normal. Gosh, that's terrible, but we made it. But then, as that 2 weeks came, 3 weeks came, and then that call, okay, we're not going back until May 1st, and then, well into the third week, we're not going back this school year. Many of you started to get those calls, that don't show up for work because, we're to be quarantined, we're in lockdown, and so we're not opening the restaurant, we're not opening the grocery, we're not opening the gym, we're not opening whatever, your mechanic's not available, you have to work on your own lawnmower, whatever it is. People began to really start to at least see the tip of what this might be and what this might look like for everyone, and it was pretty frightening, and it continues to be frightening, right? Because we still don't know, right? We still don't have all the answers. We don't know when this will all end, and if it does end, what does that mean? I don't know about you. I think, will I buy that? When they say, hey, you're welcome, open the doors, come on out, people, go back to work, live your life. Are you going to be scared? I'm going to be scared. There's a part of me that is going to be scared, So as it's went on, and as the reality of it set in, I think it's a lot more overwhelming and more to deal with for most of us than we ever thought it would be. And I think understanding that it has had immediate fallout or consequences, but that this whole pandemic will also have long-term or maybe even lasting effects on many of us, or on all of us as a whole, right? And that it's affected not just me, my home, my household, or my local community, state, nation, whatever, but the world. That we've all been dealing with this together at the same time and pretty much close to the same level. So I think it's setting in and becoming more real, and trying to learn how to navigate that is a little bit overwhelming. And so having said that, I think also, it's nature that we want answers, and sometimes in seeking answers, we seldom look at ourselves. We tend to look outside of ourselves. I think looking at ourselves, being introspective, is probably one of the hardest things for most of us to do. So we start looking for answers, and sometimes in looking for answers, we start to blame, right? Blame or judge others for their role or what we think their role was, or for decisions they made, or we begin to think that we could do it better, or would have made a different decision. And I guess for me, what I just feel that God has pointed out to me is that I don't want to be about that. I just really don't. I think for those people who have the responsibility every day in our government, at the federal level, whether that be our government or another government, people who have those responsibilities every day to make decisions in this situation and circumstance that have lasting effects on people's lives, devastating effects, currently and again maybe long term or forever. That's tough. That has got to be so tough, and I'm not going to sit here in my home and struggle to handle my little bit of the world and my responsibilities and believe it all at any time that I have the right to judge someone else's responsibility, position, or decision, when I don't know what that's like. I don't know what that's like, and to be honest with you, I know that person with that kind of responsibility is not me. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. It would break my heart, and I would freeze in fear of hurting someone or making the wrong decision and never getting anything done. So I just want to say thank you to all those people who are um, created, made up that way, who are going to work every day, be that in our government or in our hospitals or our doctor's offices, be that people driving trucks and making deliveries, or still keeping the gas pumps open, or whatever it is, fast food that we're still thinking we need to go out and eat. Thank you for all those people who continue to do what they can to keep our economy going, keep our people healthy, come up with solutions to cure or to do away with this virus, or to keep our country, our world on track. So I just want you to know I'm not going to be that person. I think God has really reminded me to, remove the plank in my own eye before I ever begin to address the splinter in someone else's. So I just want to thank all of those people. And I want to, just, I guess, encourage us all to be mindful of that. Because I know a couple of times lately when I've turned on the TV, it's, the conversations are really starting to head in that direction, right? I mean, I've heard it said, that, people will put this all on China, and, this began in China, and this is China's fault, and they didn't respond quickly or react quickly enough. They weren't forthcoming with all the details. Had they done this or reacted in this way, we probably wouldn't have. And, maybe that's true, but, point is, we're here, right? Regardless of where it began or who started, that's not going to change where we are, and it's certainly not lending to a solution or an outcome. So, do I think that anyone in that country, in China, or anywhere else around the world would purposefully do something that would cause such tragedy and devastation within their own country or around the world purposefully? I just don't, and I think that everyone is suffering the same. Everyone is feeling the same burden. Governments, homes, people of every nation. So I just don't. And then the other thing, that talking again about blame, even, and please, people, do not inundate me with comments about this, because I do not mean at all for this to be a political thing, but I guess I would just say I have heard it said and repeated several times in the news recently, that the United States has now pulled out support for the World Health Organization, and, because, again, as this goes on and the economy is failing and we are starting to grasp the enormous impact of all of this, people are looking to place blame, right? And even our government, even our nation is doing so. And, now we're pointing fingers at the World Health Organization. It was China and they began and they didn't, but then the World Health Organization should have, investigated, got in there, released information, come up with a solution, created, I don't know what we thought, but suddenly it's their fault, and we're punishing one another, and again starting to pull out and separate one another, and I just don't think that's the answer. I don't think, for me, that's not what God has placed on my heart. In fact, I think through this situation He has reminded me, or maybe even shown to me for the first time on this level, that you know what, we're not all so separated as we think, and I think just by the very nature of how we live, we tend to believe that. We know there are people in different nations at different geographical locations around the world, right? But do we really think about them? Do we really grasp that or identify with those people, I know for me, I tend to be very caught up in just my little bubble and circle, am I caring for myself and my family and my friends, and am I there for, my coworkers and my neighbors, and, as long as they're all happy and we're all in touch, right, I don't worry so much about everyone else, because, I'm not really personally directly affected by that, right? But that's wrong. That's the wrong attitude. If we think that we're exempt, if we think that we're all separate, and what happens over here in this country or over there on that continent doesn't matter or affect me or affect us, boy, have we been proven wrong, right? This has wiped out millions. This has touched thousands and thousands of people in every nation. So, people, we're not so big as we think. We're not so exempt or separated. In fact, biblically, we should know that we're all one people. One God created one people, one human race in His image, and placed all those He created and continues to place those He created on the one earth that He created. So, we're not separated. We're not one more important or less important or more deserving or less deserving. We're all equal and in this together. So, I guess that's maybe some of the lessons that I'm learning. I'm learning that I need to be humble. I'm learning that I need to be aware. I need to be proactive in working toward finding solutions or helping those outside of my world or my bubble, and knowing that we are all connected and all in this together. So, and that in that process, to be careful, not to let my own experience or own struggles or own position, right? Because some, like I said, aren't being as affected as others, right? Don't let those things lead me to believe that I'm any more worthy or less worthy than anybody else, and then lead me to judge or blame someone else. I just don't think that's what God would want. So I hope that we'll keep that in mind and carry one another in prayer, and that you'll look for what you can do where you are. So I guess that's what I've learned. And so I know that I had shared that I had been reading through the prophets in the Bible, and that I had kind of went there at the beginning of all of this because I knew that was a time when, Israel and Judah was under siege and at battle, and they were being scattered, and they were going through a lot, and that there were certain men that God had chosen to be messengers to carry His message to Israel and to Judah and to the people of the world, and Assyria and Moab and all of these other places. And a lot of what they were having to say wasn't easy to hear or swallow, and some of it was frightening, and some of it was maddening and didn't make people very happy, and these men were persecuted, and people tried to kill them and mocked them, and some of them were led to not be able to speak, and all kinds of things that they went through. And I just think, again, talking about our leaders, what a position, right? To be the representative, to be the go-to in any kind of tragedy. So I'd been reading through those, and I had come across a scripture in Micah, and in this particular scripture, God is pleading with Israel to remember and to return to Him and to remember what He had done for them. And in doing so, Israel then comes back to basically, cry out to God and to speak with Micah as to, well then what do we do? Okay, so having understood all these things and how far we've come and how far away we've fallen, what shall we do? What shall we do? With what shall I come before the Lord was basically their question to Micah. And Micah responds by saying, He has shown you, O people, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justly, to love mercy, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with one another and with your God. And so I say that again. All people, all nations, we are one human race created by one God and on one earth. And, God has shown us by His example what is good. And what does He require of you and of me? Just to do justly, live justly, and to love, mercy, and kindness, and to walk humbly with one another and with God. And I hope that we're able to look for those opportunities to do that now, but also to continue to do that in the future. And in so doing, I often write down different things that I'm thinking or that come to me, or maybe it's my prayer, whatever. I'm a talker. I know y'all are shocked. And there are people at work who often say, okay, Redmond, we just need the condensed version, or when you write this, don't write out a book, but it's who I am. And so y'all be very glad to know that's also how I study and pray. My head goes all over the place, and I just got to write it down and pull my thoughts together. So just wanted to share my thoughts and prayers from this morning, and I will read them because, like I said, I'm random. But I hope that they sit well with you. I hope that you give them some thought, and I hope that they answered the question as to, what struggles do I have and what lessons am I learning. I'm in this with you, people. Truly. All over the place am I with you. So I just wrote, Dear Lord, if there is a recurring theme, one thing more than any other this event has brought home to me, it is humility and unity. The world for me has become a smaller, more intimate space. We are not all separate people living disconnected lives at all. We are all one people, God's people, sharing one space, God's one created earth. I pray, Lord, that all the earth and the people everywhere will stop separating and categorizing one another, into those who are and those who are not, those who have or have not, those who deserve or do not deserve, those who have earned or do not earn, who are accepting or not accepting, who belong or don't belong, whatever it is, Lord. I just pray that we'll stop separating ourselves and categorizing and separating ourselves out from each other. I pray that we'll no longer separate and categorize our value by oceans and seas or land boundaries, geography, culture, language, or race. I pray, Lord, that we will instead be united by that which we have in common, that we are indeed all your created people, all created in your image. Move us to accept one another and to value our differences. Help us to return to you and turn to one another, understanding that together we are far more capable of navigating this life journey than when isolated and grappling for supremacy, world power, dominance, wealth. Have we not seen that all these are temporary and can be shifted and removed in just one day? You are the only one who has authority over all the earth. It is not man or woman, government, business mogul, humanitarian, or world leader. You alone, Father, are creator of heaven and earth, the beginning and the end. Everything and everyone you spoke into existence. Help us to humble ourselves, to read your word and apply it first to our own hearts and life. There's no one person better or more deserving than any other, Lord. No one country, continent, government, world leader, organization who could have imagined or predicted such tragedy or global devastation. Even now, we are perplexed. Separation, division, and supremacy are not now, nor have they ever been a solution. Help us now and always forever going forward globally journey this life and walk every path together united. We do need all people everywhere, every knee, every tongue, every nation to fight the good fight united in effort, love, compassion, faith, and provision for one another. And this, Father, is my prayer. Amen. And I'll just leave you with one last thought. And I did post a couple of songs this morning on social media because having a couple of rough days, I needed to get up and go to church in my own home. And so we have worship at church, so I had worship here. And listening to some songs this morning, one of them was Crowder, and it's called I'm Leaning on You. So if you get a moment, look that up, see if you like it. But I'm just going to read a little bit of the lyrics because I thought they were very appropriate for now. And it just says, Jesus, take the beauty from the pain. Jesus, lift these weary hands again. Turn the sorrows into songs of praise. Jesus, I am leaning on your name. When no one else can help me, Jesus can. Every other name is sinking sand. Even when my heart cannot understand, Jesus, I will trust you even then. I'm convinced, no, confident, that nothing can ever separate us from God's love. Neither death nor life nor power on earth can separate us from our God. Thanks, guys. Hope that answered your question, and I hope y'all are still hanging in there being healthy, and hopefully my sidekick will be back soon. Love y'all.